All right, everyone. It's my birthday today, and there's a couple things I want as a present.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. But the best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTube page. And if you follow us, if you like the show, and if you're going to post anything on the social media, make sure to put that hashtag EverydaySully. It helps us find you. It helps us see who's actually making the comments. I swear, get your information. I just want to have it right. Hey, we did a show the other day about Pete Rose, and we had some interesting comments on it. I'm going to say O's fan 8 says, I agree with most of it. My point has always been Pete Rose should have been in the plaque of the Hall of Fame and should have said how he bet on baseball. And it was relevant as his legacy hits total. I believe the same should be said for the steroid users. I agree with all that. I do. I accept the fact that Pete Rose, as I said before, didn't want to be in the Hall of Fame. He wanted to be relevant. And the minute he got into the Hall of Fame, he would no longer be relevant. And that was part of his game. And that was the point I was making. Roy DeLauder says it's about damn time. R.I.P. Pete Rose. Fair enough. And Try the Rib says wishes me a happy birthday, and I thank him for that. Let's get to the trivia question, though. The trivia question I had was which Hall of Famers was what I said, got 1,000 hits in both leagues. Now, Elsa's dad, who was on the live chat, immediately said McGriff, which is a phenomenal guess and one of the correct answers. And Elsa's dad did Stratomatic baseball for many years, according to him. Someone else guessed Albert Pujols. And while that's a phenomenal guess, and Albert Pujols, like Pete Rose, will eventually be in the Hall of Fame, Albert Pujols isn't in the Hall of Fame yet. So he's not technically a Hall of Famer yet. So the other answers, by the way, are Fred McGriff is one of them. Vladimir Guerrero Sr. is one of them, getting all those hits as a member of the Expos and then later with the Angels and with the Rangers. Dave Winfield, all those hits he got with San Diego, and then later bouncing around the American League with the Yankees and the Blue Jays and the Angels and the Twins, and later with Cleveland. And then I think the biggest and most obvious one, arguably the greatest Red of all time, or would have been the greatest Red of all time if they didn't trade him away, is Frank Robinson, who got 1,759 hits in the National League as a member of the Reds. And also he played with Los Angeles as well, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and 1,184 hits, mainly with the Baltimore Orioles, but he also got some hits as a member of the California Angels and with the Cleveland Indians. So good job, Elsa's dad. I don't even know Elsa, but there you go. Yeah, it's my birthday today. And I was born on May 14, 1972. That was my birthday. And an interesting thing happened on May 14, 1972. Willie Mays played his first game against the Giants. His first game not as a member of the Giants, as a major leaguer. He had been just traded to the New York Mets. He was going to finish his career with the Mets. And he played his first game as a Met against his former teammate, the Giants, at Shea Stadium, and he hit the go-ahead home run, which put the Mets up for good. So on the day that Willie Mays hit a home run to defeat the San Francisco Giants in a hospital in Willimantic, Connecticut, your pal Sully was born. And my mom is listening to this episode because she listens to every episode. Hi, Ma. How are you doing? I love you, Duck. So it is my birthday. I am turning 53. I have turned 53. I am now a little bit closer to 100 than I am my birth. And there are some things that I would like to have. Now, I don't need more gifts. I don't need more plastic cups. I have this one here right next to me, which actually is an A's cup that says Sacramento. So this cup is allowed to admit that the A's play in the Sacramento, but the team is not. I don't need more things. You can all send me money. In fact, everyone listening can each send me about $1,000. That'd be great. However, what I really want are some things in baseball to be just a little bit better. Now, I have made some of these requests in the past. Some of them I'll always make, like start the season with the All-Star game. That seems to be an easy fix. Have the season begin with a great show with all the big stars, and you use the entire season's worth of stats instead of just midway point of the season to determine who's an all-star or not. And you start the season with a big show. And where we currently have the all-star break, have that be where two teams go play an international series. So in the middle of the year, you start the season with the all-star game, and somewhere in the middle of the year, someone goes to Japan, someone goes to France, someone goes to London, someone goes to Mexico City. Someone may actually go to Tampa Bay. But here's some other things that I want. I thought of 8 things that little changes in baseball, not necessarily even the rules, just maybe some of it are just the mindset, that I think will make the game of baseball, Major League Baseball, better. And first is in charge of the commissioner of baseball has to make sure there are 30 crazy billionaires in baseball. I want 30 megalomaniacal James Bond villain level crazy running baseball teams. I want them petty, I want them jealous, and I want them to be angry at the other 29 owners and want to top them. There's got to be 30 billionaires out there. Now, maybe it looks like one of them is currently running the Mets. Another group is currently running the Dodgers. We need about 28 more. We need 28 more. There's no, real regulatory action going on with baseball. They have an antitrust exemption. You can basically run it like your own oligarchy. But instead of it being a country, it can be the Brewers or the Pirates or the Marlins. And we need a bunch of billionaires who want to top everyone else and show that they're the best and be angry when they're not winning and throw more money at their team. That's what we need. That will make the game absolutely thrive in ways we can't even imagine, because you'll see teams that have been lost in the undertow or may contend because they play in a weak division, and instead they're the ones throwing money at the players in the offseason. And we also need to end all blackouts. Blackouts are anachronistic, blackouts for another time, and create what I call the Superfan MLB offer on the MLB app and MLB.com. Have it be, you pay a premium price. Again, I'm not talking about making this be a communist organization. This is going to be pure capitalism. Actually, not pure capitalism, because there's an antitrust exemption. So they could do what they want and make all the money they want and charge super fans like me, my mom, and chances are a lot of you to say, for a fee, for an extra amount of money, all the games that I'm going to watch are going to be in the same place. I don't have to look for Roku. I don't have to look for Apple Plus. You can have Apple Plus announcers doing it, but it's always if I want to watch the Giants, it's on the MLB app. It doesn't matter if they're home. Doesn't matter if they're away. Doesn't matter if they're the Apple TV game or the Roku game or the Amazon game or on Fox or they're blacked out or it's the postseason. Put that on there. The super fans will pay for that, and you'll make some extra money. Everyone else can do it the other way. You can go on Apple TV. Oh, we're blacked out. Maybe we have to pay for the super fan. And you know what? That'll mean more money for those crazy billionaires. I have some more things that I want for my birthday. Get all the supplies you need from the site made for skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from more than 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Now, some of these things I want are more of the mindset of the game that I want to see moving forward. I miss the days of ace pitchers. I loved ace pitchers. That was one of the things I loved about baseball is that you didn't just look at who was playing that day. You looked at who were pitching, who the pitchers were for that day. It wasn't just that the Mets are going to be playing the Expos. You want what pitcher of the Mets is going to be pitching, what pitcher for the Expos is pitching. You could have a lousy team, but if they had a terrific pitcher on that team, suddenly that became a tough game. And I've talked about ancient history. I'm talking about like the days of Felix Hernandez playing on some rotten teams in Seattle. But when you went to play Seattle, now they're a 100-loss team. They're going to stink. Oh, Felix Hernandez is pitching. I want to bring back the days of an ace pitcher, not necessarily to have pitchers throw 140 pitches and have their arms fall off, but to rely on the pitchers, especially when you have a game where it's like, hey, they're pitching great. No need to bring in the bullpen, which is a mentality I want moving forward. Allow pitchers to pitch until they need relief. If a pitcher is throwing great and doesn't seem to be tiring, don't necessarily bring out a parade of relief pitchers when the guy is already pitching well. I'm not saying to pull a Grady Little and have the pitcher pitch until their arm falls off. No, if they need relief, give them relief. A good bullpen is helped by a solid rotation and vice versa. Instead of having the mentality of, well, they faced the order twice, now we got to go to our parade of relievers, that always is the assumption that the parade of relievers are all going to do their job. And sometimes one gets clobbered. And suddenly you're in a situation you're using all your relievers, and now all of our best relievers are used. It's only the 7th inning. And it goes into extra innings, and all you have are scrubs or middle infielders who come in for an emergency relief appearance. Let's have that be a new thing moving forward. Allow pitchers to pitch until they need relief, which could also bring another thing I want to see baseball get back to, emphasizing defense and pitching to contact. Yes, I know strikeouts are fun. Are they? But seeing 14, 15 strikeouts a game every single day, it's less exciting now. Looking back at some pitchers in the olden days when they would throw 65, 70 pitches in a complete game, they were relying on their defense. Sometimes you want to get a 4 or 5 pitch inning instead of always going to 3 and 2 on every single batter. Trust the defense. I know that's a mentality. If the batter hits the ball, it's suddenly a bad stat for the pitcher. But what if they pop it up? What if they ground out? What if they do something where they get an out that isn't relying on, at the minimum, 3 pitches? And usually will be fouled off or throw some balls along the way. On the same note, emphasize contact, putting the ball in play. I know you can hit into a double play. You could also hit a flare. You could also find that little Bermuda Triangle where there's no fielder. Hit them where they ain't. Someone could make an error. Someone could be shifted the wrong way. There's a lot of things that happen when you put a ball into play. And it's a lot more interesting than a strikeout and a walk. And what it also does, it increases the pace of play. Pace of play does not mean length of game. Balls in play, runners moving. That's a good pace of play. Do you know what's not a good pace of play? Strike 3, ball 4, and the fielders out there blowing dandelions. But I also want to see, this is something else I really, really want to see moving forward. And this is one of the few times that I'm going to go both sides on something. I'm not a big fan on both sidesing issues. Well, both sides have something to say. No, usually one side is wrong on an issue. But this is one side that I'm going to go 2 sides on. I want to remove the pressure of analytics and the stigma of analytics. One of the problems that the analytics have, and why it constantly clashes with players and traditional fans, is that it seems to be a mentality of how do we prevent to lose instead of trying to win? It takes away the aggressiveness and makes it all about preventing something bad from happening instead of something good from happening. That's how we had things like, well, you face the order twice, and third time through the order is harder. Okay, well, then let's try it. Let's push forward. If a pitcher is capable of doing that, then you push forward and you don't burn all your relievers. Nope. We got to pull Blake Snell in the middle of a masterpiece. I'm always going to go back to that. The relying and the pressure on the analytics to be like, oh, we're making this decision or that decision, or throwing tons of information at some poor young player or some veteran who's established in their ways to be, okay, now you have to get all this information in your head, when we have all learned from Crash Davis and Bull Durham, don't think, it only hurts the ball club. Maybe you don't put that pressure on the manager to say, well, I saved my job by following I'm just going by what the analytics told me to do. But at the same time, we should remove the stigma from analytics as well. Analytics are not the boogeyman. Analytics aren't the thing ruining a game. We've always had analytics. It's just now more advanced. And while I personally don't care at all about predictive analytics or things like, what's the speed off of a bat, what's that called? An exit velocity, or I don't care about things like a true home run. I don't even care about BABIP. I care about what happened because I like the narrative. I don't care about predicting. I don't have a fantasy baseball team. I don't think of myself as a future GM. I would never want to be a GM. I like the magic trick. I don't necessarily need to see how they're shoving the doves up their sleeves. But we've always had analytics. Even if they were in the days of using batting average and runs batted in, which are flawed metrics or wins, we've always used metrics in one way, shape, or another. They're just now more advanced. And while it may be overwhelming, or something like hearing things like a true home run may be a little frustrating, we shouldn't make them the stigma. If someone's really following analytics in a team, that could just mean they're using the best information. All teams use analytics. It's how they use them is how successful they'll be. And whether or not they use them to go forward and try to win, or just trying to prevent the loss. These are all things that I think, well, we kind of need to change in sort of the mentality of baseball. But there's three other things I want to talk about that are really changing the mindset that I think will help move the game forward in an interesting way, in a way that is, well, adapting to the 2020s. Now, if I were the commissioner of baseball, and I want to end this rumor, I am not, but let the record show I am willing to run and vote for Sully. I'm a baseball commissioner for a change. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, if I were the commissioner, I'll tell you one thing I would do. I would go to as many architecture firms as I can, meet forward-thinking architects, meet architects from other countries, and try to figure out how to design a multi-purpose ballpark that isn't a boring cookie cutter park. Multi-purpose ballparks not only make sense, we're going to build a ballpark. We want a football team and a baseball team in our city. Well, they can share a ballpark. That makes sense. It made sense when they built Riverfront Stadium and Shea Stadium and Veteran Stadium and Three River Stadium and all those, and Busch Stadium and Atlanta Fulton County Stadium and the Oakland Coliseum, to have a stadium that could put both a football team and a baseball team into them. The problem is they all built these concrete donuts that had no life, that had no personality, of which I kind of actually disagree with that stereotype, because I grew up thinking that those stadiums were glamorous because the glamorous teams played in those stadiums. I actually was jealous of my cousins who were able to go to the Vet. Well, I was stuck going to crummy little Fenway Park. But I digress. The Ballpark Revolution with Camden Yards made everyone say, oh, we want a baseball-only experience. And that's cool. But that was also 35 years ago or so, however long it was. It's been a while. And some of the newfangled ballparks are kind of all blending in my head together. We need a new ballpark revolution, and we have cities that, kind of sort of need to be building multi-purpose parks. Stadiums are way more expensive than they were in the era of Camden Yards. And we have cities that have been hosed because they're trying to build a stadium for football and a stadium for baseball. Chicago wants to build a new ballpark for both the Bears and the White Sox, two of them. That'll cost about $4 billion. And probably a lot of that's going to be public money. I got news for you. How about one? And find a way to make it look interesting. Find a way to have it be an interesting stadium. Nashville is the single most obvious city to have an expansion team. It's a perfect baseball market. The one thing it lacks is a place to play. And that is no small detail. Meanwhile, the Tennessee Titans are about to have another gigantic new ballpark to replace Nissan Stadium. Well, why aren't they building a multi-purpose stadium? Or why don't they take Nissan Stadium once they move out of there into the new, whatever the hell it's going to be called, ballpark, and reconvert the old football stadium and see if you can convert that into a baseball stadium. The Savannah Bananas played there. Granted, the right field line was way too close, but spend a little bit of money and reconvert it or do something. If the new Buccaneers Stadium for the NFL was a multi-purpose park, you may not have this same problem that we have currently with the Tampa Bay Rays. All right? I want to see some ideas. I'm not the person to do it. But there's someone out there who will design something, and that will be the next great ballpark breakthrough. The ballpark breakthrough could very well be in Las Vegas. I don't know if that will ever be built. But here's a couple of things I want to think about. I want Major League Baseball to hire the producers of the Olympics and TV shows like The Amazing Race or The Great British Baking Show. Do you know why? Because those shows can be incredibly compelling, even though the competition that they have in there is not particularly popular. You could have a story of a heartbreaking story of someone who does curling or throws the javelin, and it becomes so compelling that you find yourself rooting for someone playing water polo or doing a dive because their story, who they are, the human interest behind it becomes so intense during the Olympics or during some of these reality competition shows that you root for them, even though you wouldn't follow a javelin throw or someone running through the streets of Singapore looking for clues in a normal situation. But you can't take your eyes off it because you're rooting for the people. Baseball needs to do that big time. Baseball needs to find all the human interest stories. There are great human interest stories. People who've gone through tremendous struggles, people who have been dealing with emotional issues, people who've been dealing with physical crisis, people dealing with dying family members, people who have escaped incredible poverty, all these different stories. And we're stuck with the numbers and being told, don't get stuck in the narrative. No, let's get stuck in the narrative. Let's get people who wouldn't normally follow baseball get super into baseball. If you watched a game between the Texas Rangers and the Tampa Bay Devil Rays back in 1999, and it was a blowout, the Rangers were winning, and the Devil Rays brought in a left-handed pitcher named Jim Morris to strike out Royce Clayton and get another couple outs after that, you would shrug meaningless game and obscure pitchers and two teams. The Rangers were good and the Devil Rays were bad. Okay. Put that in the context of the movie The Rookie, and you're crying because it's Dennis Quaid out there. Dennis Quaid's always great, but Dennis Quaid's out there, and you realize, oh, how he has fought his way to get to this point, and Brian Cox is in the stands as his dad, and blah, 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 blah. I'm crying thinking about it. You need to have that human quality. Rocky wasn't a great movie because of the fight. It was because of what built up to the fight. And the Olympics aren't compelling because you like watching someone chuck a javelin, but because of the stories behind it. And baseball has to flood us with these stories and get us to root for players and situations because of that, and hire the producers who know how to do that. And it brings us to the other thing. The entire culture of what we're dealing with right now pop culture, sports, music, TV, whatever, is now in the hands of the tech companies. And tech companies don't look at this as games. They don't look at these as games. They don't look at it as movies or shows. They look at it as content. They're content for their platform. They're content for their app. I even brought up MLB.com and the MLB app. It's content for the app. And baseball is the ultimate game for the app content world because they're putting on new content every damn day. And baseball has to realize that. But in order to become the great centerpiece, they have to really emulate Marvel. And to a lesser extent, what happened when Harry Potter and the Lord of the Rings became big, huge hits in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, and people thought these are kind of nerdy films and no one would want to see them, and they weren't the way that blockbusters were made up until that point. But those films embraced the hardcore fans, pleased the hardcore fans, and made sure they knew that it became an event. Their films became an event, and the fandom became an event. Instead of trying to mold it for other fans, they appeased the diehard fans of those movies, those franchises, and suddenly other people wanted to be involved in it because they saw how much fun the hardcore fans were having. They joined in on the fun. Marvel did the same thing brilliantly. Yeah, there were some heroes that most people knew, like the Hulk or Captain America. They turned freaking Guardians of the Galaxy and Black Panther into mammoth cultural events because they played to the fans, the hardcore fans, and it became a communal experience. And people wanted to be part of a communal experience. And suddenly Black Panther, who was not the most famous superhero, or Guardians of the Galaxy, not famous superheroes, became a cultural event, and people wanted to be part of that because there's so many things that fracture us. We want to have these events that bring us together, and suddenly Avengers Infinity War becomes this incredible, and Endgame becomes this amazing event because they played to the hardcore fans and brought other people into them. Baseball needs to do that. Instead of always making fans angry because they're trying to expand their audience, focus on the fans, make them, the hardcore fans, make them super happy, and people will join them. Like they did with Lord of the Rings, like they did with Black Panther, like they did with the Top Gun Maverick, like they did with American freaking Idol. Baseball is more ingrained in our culture than any of those things, and better used for content by tech companies than any other sport. Not football, that's on once a week. Not basketball, that's on 3 times a week. Baseball's on 6, 7 times a week. There's always a game on. There's always something to do, and you can there's numbers you can join, there's interactive things you can do, there's human interest stories you can have, and there's a hardcore fandom that other people can say, hey, I want to be part of that because I'm so sick of being part of a culture that's so fractured. I want to be part of a group think. I want to be part of a group experience that isn't conservative, that isn't liberal, that isn't religious, that isn't atheistic, that isn't even nationalistic in a way, because there's so many people. The biggest stars could come from America, or they come from Japan, or they could come from Korea, or they can come from the Caribbean. Play to that fandom, the diehard fans, and make other people want to be part of that. You think I gave a crap about the Lord of the Rings? Most of the people who went to see it were people who would not have even given it 2 seconds of thought until they saw what a phenomenon it was becoming and how much fun the hardcore fans were having. I read comic books. I never heard of Guardians of the Galaxy, and yet it became an event. You could do that with baseball. Please the hardcore fans, make sure they're super happy, and turns into an event that other people will see, wow, I want to be part of that group experience. Play to the heartstrings, take away the blackouts, make sure how we're watching the games are available there, And if we have to pay a little bit more, we will, because we want to be part of that. Hire the forward-thinking architects to create the ballparks, because it's way too expensive to build two now. Not in this world. Not in this world where the prices of things are all over the map. Remove the stigma for our analysis of the stats, but also don't rely on them like a crutch. Try to win. Don't try to avoid a loss. Pitch to contact. Allow pitchers to pitch until they need relief, and get a bunch of James Bond villain billionaires to run these teams. And if those things can happen, then guess what? I will have the happiest birthday you can imagine. And that's going to bring us to today's trivia question. Today's trivia question is this. There are 3 members of the Hall of Fame who share my birthday of May 14. Who are the 3 current members of the Baseball Hall of Fame who were born on May 14th? So put those answers right down here, and you can follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter, or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. And thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen for today. Your second listen today, stay right here and check out the new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long, get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Talking about the things baseball can do to make it a little bit better, and in the end, a lot more profitable. So just so you know, I'm thinking about your money interests, megalomaniacal billionaires. This has been Locked On MLB for May 14, 2025. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan, your birthday boy, and you can call me Sully.